And we are so short of water that the Colorado River, from which at least 7 states get their water, is running dry. And all the dams are down to about, 25% of capacity. And those of us at the bottom of the Central Arizona project, which is Colorado River water, are fighting amongst ourselves, California, Nevada, Arizona, fighting amongst ourselves, and I'm saying fighting. The words that are being used for the discussions have more to do with negotiating. But we are thinking about what we're going to do without water, because what happened was a lot of different things have happened. The closest one is data centers. The most recent one is data centers, which somehow everyone thinks some belong in California and Arizona. But before data centers, we have the issue of the Saudis leased a bunch of land in a grazing community in Arizona and used the water rights which come with the land to grow alfalfa, which they then shipped home to feed the beef that they were raising over there. And nobody noticed it for years and years, and finally our Attorney General and Governor noticed it recently. The leases were up, and so she wouldn't renew them, so the Saudis have gone home. But a lot of that type of stuff is going on, and if you are really interested in water and water rights and water systems, it is a very complicated subject, and it doesn't need an outside entity. The United States has not paid any attention to its infrastructure since it was built. And, remember in Trump term 1, Infrastructure Week, how it was always going to be Infrastructure Week? Well, it never was Infrastructure Week. And we are now reaping the rewards of that. So I don't need to know whether Iran did it or not, because if Iran didn't do it, then some other state in the United States did. I mean, we've had water problems in Flint, Michigan. We've had water problems in other municipalities where you haven't been able to drink the water, and nobody pays much attention to it except the town that it happens to be in this week. But our infrastructure has been falling apart for quite a while.
So everything you say is true. However,
I hope so.
However, we're not talking about shortages of water today. We're talking about sabotaging of water systems. And so it's I'm not saying that we don't already have a water crisis, especially in your home state of Arizona. I know that there are communities where they have to actually truck the water in. They truck
the
water.
The title of this room is our water supply at risk? And that is the question that I came up here to answer, because I've been studying this since the 70s.
All right, fair enough. That's fair enough. I want to talk about the question that Marshall raised, and I said I would look it up. Approximately 70% of inspected water utilities, this is according to the EPA, fail to meet basic cybersecurity standards meant to prevent data breaches and unauthorized intrusions. 70%. According to the EPA and federal enforcement alerts, a significant majority of the nation's water systems harbor critical vulnerabilities. They violate, apparently, it's not a guideline, it's a mandate. they violate, according to a CBS News report that I'm looking at, the Safe Drinking Water Act's basic security requirements. So I was incorrect when I thought that they were guidelines, and I said they were guidelines. They are requirements. Many systems fall short on foundational security, such as failing to change default manufactured passwords, using single shared logins for all staff, or failing to revoke system access for former employees. Less than 25% of water and wastewater utilities actively perform annual cyber risk assessments to identify their own flaws. I mean, this is just basic common sense. And then to today's discussion, a massive portion of the sector relies on internet-connected operational software to manage pumps and valves without adequate firewalls, leaving them completely visible to outside scanners. Whether it is Iran or not, the people of Iran are very adept when it comes to the internet and getting around firewalls and running proxies and a lot of other stuff that I don't even know exists, or if I did know they exist, wouldn't have any understanding of it at all. But they're known for this, the Iranians are. So, why?
They're also short of water themselves, Gary. They were going to move the capital last year or the year before because Tehran was so short of water.
Right. Well, they have their own problems, yes, of course, but that has nothing to do with this. You know, their water problems is their own inability to manage their systems and their economy, because they put all their money into the wrong things. You think we don't spend our money properly? Nothing is compared to them. I mean, they shoot themselves in the foot all the time, and they don't particularly care because, as Scott points out all the time, it's an illiberal society, or infrastructure, not the society, but government infrastructure. They don't care. They don't have to answer to the people. So they just do what they feel like doing and spending their money where they feel like spending their money, and they are religious zealots, the people running the country, and that overrides what a normal government responsibility is, to maintain a water supply for the people. So yes, they have their own water problems as well. But in terms of the hacking that is going on right now, that's being reported today, of the water systems in the United States, it's pretty obvious they're not taking the basic. I mean, that would be like you putting your password for your computer on the internet so that anybody can enter your password and operate your computer anytime they want. I mean, maybe some people are stupid enough to do that. But if you're taking a password that is a default password provided by the manufacturer, when the system is installed, and you don't change the password, and you are one of hundreds or thousands of water systems across the nation that are also too lazy to change the password, well, you're almost inviting hacks. And if you allow for there to be a common password, where I work, I have a password. The people around me have passwords to enter the same computer system. We each have access to the same material, but we all have separate passwords. And guess what? When I leave the employ of my company, my password, my credentials are immediately inactivated. They're no good to anybody. But here, there's a password that if we knew, and I bet you if we went online, we could find it, the way to get into these systems we could just enter that password, the default password that's pretty well known in the industry, and Dr. Francine, you and I could be, looking at, Minnesota's water systems.
Where do you get this information that all of these systems have similar passwords, Gary?
I just read it.
Ah.
I just read it to the room. They are, at the very beginning, I read the name of the company that most of these water supplies are using to run their operation. And they all are given the same password to get started. And according to the federal audits, 70% of these systems, they don't change the password. It's madness.
So
and it's
Iran doesn't have to do a goddamn thing. We need to look in the mirror at our own water system manager.
Right. We make it very easy for whoever is doing this, whether it's Iran or somebody else. Exactly. It's almost inviting them to do it. I remember when I was helping run, as Alan was, an internet-based company very similar to Clubhouse, and we had hackers who would contact our chief technical officer and say to him, "Hey, Perry, I just got into your system." And we rewarded them. They were hackers, but we rewarded them because they weren't doing it maliciously. They were white hat hackers, and they were using it to bring to the attention of the company our vulnerabilities. And Perry would say, "You're right, we screwed up. That information should not be accessible to the outside world." And one of them, I don't know his real name, they called him the Egyptian hacker, some guy in Egypt. And they had some kind of a drop, or I don't know how they paid him, but they ultimately ended up putting him on the payroll without even knowing his name. It went to some kind of an account. I don't know how they transferred the money. I never asked. It doesn't matter. He was getting paid. And the guys started off by saying to him, "I got full access to your computer system." And Perry said, "No, there's no way. I built all the firewalls myself." He says, "I know everybody's social security number, and I know how much they're being paid." And Perry said to him, "Okay, what's my social security number and what's my salary?" Boom, he told him. Well, that got his attention. So you can't make it yourself vulnerable like that. It's really stupid. And common sense tells you not to. And I just don't understand why 70%, the federal government says 70% of the systems in the country are vulnerable. It's ridiculous. Abby, followed by Breyer.
I am not going to be able to speak. I have like a minute. I'm on an airplane. I'll have to take off. But I did want to share two things quickly on this. And I'm going to put it in the chat. One of our companies in Las Vegas got attacked by Iran and got hacked and put a huge casino company, out of business for a day because someone at the company made a comment about bombing Iran years ago. And within 24, 48 hours, the company was hacked. Someone did a documentary on it, and it was pretty extraordinary what happened. And all the computers, had like fires and explosions appear when people would log in. And anyway, obviously it got fixed, but that was just something they're capable of. So I will put that in the chat. And then with respect to the water supply, I mean, this is totally off topic, but I live in a city that's suffering with losing its water. So that's a whole other conversation about how our water source is shrinking dramatically. But anyway, that was the only thing I wanted to say, and I'll put the story in the chat. Thank you.
You're talking about the Sands Corporation.
Yes. Yes.
The Venetian
Sheldon.
and Palazzo, yes.
Sheldon
I remember-
made a comment at a conference, and 24, 48 hours, a massive, on all the casinos that he had around the country and internationally got hacked.
I didn't know that there was Sheldon Adelstein's.
Yes, it was his comment.
Well, he's a smart. He was a smart guy.
He knew.
But but still, they got through. The Iranians are really adept at this. Is the point that Abby and I are making. Thank you, Abby. Breyer followed by Andrew.
I wanted to say one thing that I didn't think about mentioning before, but I think is interesting, and maybe others want to talk about it. I think it's an interesting question about what this does for public opinion on the war, if it is Iran, because I could see it going either way, right? I mean, on one level, you have people that might say this is another case for why it's, such a bad idea, and now it's reaping terrible consequences that we weren't reaping before. But I also could see it going the other way, saying, with making people more aware of your point that the danger is not just how far their missiles can go. So maybe I don't know. I mean, I imagine I'd love to hear people's thoughts. Like, would a threat to the water supply sort of increase disapproval for the war, or would it make people more aware of the of a threat that Iran poses that maybe they didn't think it posed before?
Our government, and I'm not referring to the Trump administration, I'm referring to half a century nearly of governments, never, maybe with the exception of Ronald Reagan, articulated properly to the United States populace the threat that Iran poses to the United States and the free world. And had they been forthcoming with this information, it would have been ingrained in the public psyche now, where people understood who we are dealing with here. I've expressed that even our president doesn't understand who he's dealing with here. I could be wrong, but that's my fear, is that he doesn't know who he's dealing with here. We think that we can negotiate. Well, we did get the JCPOA, and it did have some positive effects. But for sure, Iran is in the background, as we now know, reconstituting their systems, even during the JCPOA, their nuclear systems, because if they weren't, they wouldn't have been necessary a year ago for the United States, with the help of Israel, to hit those 3 nuclear development sites. They are not trustworthy, this regime. They are going to lie. If you think you're good at lying, people come to the stage here and say the president, every time he opens his mouth, he lies. I don't know that that's true, but there are people who believe that. Well, if you think he's good at lying, he has nothing on the Iranians. When I say Iranians, I'm talking about the regime. I'm not talking about the Iranian people. These people who are running the mullahs and the Revolutionary Guard, they lie. You can't trust anything that they say, and as well as their proxies. So I just wish there had been an educational campaign that predated contemporary events that would have mitigated the concerns that you just raised, Scott. Don't have a time machine, can't go back and fix all that. But I think that's the reason why that debate has traction. Breyer, followed by Andrew.
Hey, Gary. And I just wanted to check also, like, the whole point of this group I always think of is trying to facilitate critical thought. So, I always think of critical thinking as not being a vibe, but being rationally analyzing evidence in real world situations and then doing the analysis, right? Doing the thought process. So I looked up a couple of numbers, and right now There are over 41 million Americans that are at extreme risk to access their water supply. And there's an additional 21 million that are currently experiencing water shortage, 12 million of which don't even have access. And there are 2.2 million, about a little less than 1%, that don't even have access to running water right now. So that equals about 1 in 5 Americans are under immediate threat. And that doesn't take any foreign actor. The biggest person who has sabotaged our water supply currently, now this might be shocking to you, what they did was they diverted 62% of American projects that were scheduled to be funded by federal funds. They were canceled for one reason. And this came out in court documents. It wasn't because they were ineffective projects or didn't work or they were harmful. It was because they were in districts that voted for Kamala Harris. And this came out in court documents. It sounds so shocking, like it's almost like you want to fact check it, so feel free. So our federal government gutted these programs. These programs included water supply, lead abatement, lack of supply to infrastructure, cybersecurity, securing of soft targets. So basically what they did is they gutted the programs that would stop the actors. So I'm gonna give you a list of countries that have hacked our infrastructure or our government recently. These are the top 6 according to the CIA. They are Russia, China,
No power.
and Iran are currently the top 5. Not too long ago, Israel supplied a tool called Pegasus and used a firm called NeoX that hacked in, I think it was 37 different high-level ranking officials and got the information. We are so vulnerable to a myriad of actors. North Korea got into our banking infrastructure. Russia got into our water and power supply. They filmed Russia using drones to fly over our lines that provide power to major urban hubs and caught Russian foreign agents walking with those little, have you ever seen the little things where you walk a line to measure? They were measuring the underground infrastructure for our grids. We are exceedingly vulnerable, and our federal government has become more vulnerable because the short-sighted bitterness of our leader is willing to sacrifice all of us to try and get a barb because he couldn't win 100% of an election. And that has made us exceedingly vulnerable. But the number one threat right now is ripping
No power.
mitigation projects, because if you read the FBI and the US Army Corps of Engineers report, climate change is the number one threat to our water supply right now. It dwarfs Iran by a factor of millions. And it's not a hypothetical threat that might materialize. It's a guaranteed threat that's materializing in real time. For those of us that have running water in our taps, it doesn't matter. But my hometown didn't for 6 months because we didn't have infrastructure after a flood. How long was it that Detroit still had lead in its water? Can you imagine if Iran somehow got less and dumped?
Flint, not Detroit.
Thank you. Right? So can you imagine if a foreign actor came and dumped lead in our water and poisoned our children? Can you imagine if a foreign actor destroyed $61 billion in infrastructure that we were going to deploy? The threat right now, we can look at it from without, and we are vulnerable because we're not taking care of ourselves. But the threat right now is within, and it's how we handle our environment.
No power.
From actors like Israel that can hack our cell phones and our government.
cause of more than $11 billion in water infrastructure projects across 12 states, carried by Vice President Harris.
So think about that. That's $11 billion that our Congress voted for. It is constitutionally empowered to them. And we have a man at the top that has done more damage than every Iranian attack in American history.
That may be true, but we still are discussing today's attack. But your point is accurate.
And to your point on this,
It doesn't mitigate the concern about whoever's hacking into the water systems. Correct?
no, but part of what the infrastructure that was gutted was called soft target securing. And Gary, you like to read on this stuff and look it up. I'm sure you're familiar with the term soft target securing. And what that means is those same infrastructure controls that you mentioned are considered a soft target. They're easy to hit and they're highly vulnerable. And this is what foreign actors, predominantly Russia, China, again, the top ones, Russia, China, Israel, North Korea, Iran, are the big five right now that are just at will penetrating our systems. And furthermore, at the start of the Ukraine war, you might remember that Russia did shut down hospitals and water supply and held ransom for anonymous Bitcoin payments. Eventually, Sweden actually caught video footage of these Russian hackers. Also, if you look right now in the statement, like there's a lot of assumption that it's Iran. It could be, it might not be. But what North Korea would do and what China did is they would use the other actors that were major threats, and it can be as simple as switching to programming language and making it appear as if it was one of those nation states. So that's why right now it's speculation. If you read the actual analysis that's been released by the intelligence community, the only analysis that it was Iran that did this is that we're at war with Iran. And to be fair, Gary, this is the cost of war. Remember, we're blowing up their infrastructure in Iran. We've blown up schools, bridges. We are threatening. Donald Trump literally threatened to blow up.
I don't think we blew up schools, plural. There was one
I believe if you look, there was one we destroyed and killed a lot of children in, but there's also others that have been damaged. And, you know, maybe I'm wrong and we've been strategic and that was the Seoul school we blew up. But either way, you know, like if somebody blew up, I mean, Gary, what would you be doing in this room if you heard North Korea blew up a school and 220 little girls died?
Okay, so Breyer, how old are you?
Old enough to have been teaching this stuff for over 20 years.
Okay, that doesn't really answer the question. Are you old enough to remember?
I'm in my 40s.
Okay, you may be too young to remember Mad Magazine.
No, I absolutely remember Mad Magazine, and I know Alfred Eden.
Did you know Spy versus Spy?
Absolutely. The little black and white dudes with the pointy hats. Gary, you think I'm just a child. I know the old comics. Come on now.
Okay, so you recognize, I'm sure, since you threw Israel into this mix, and what you say is true. Israel does spy on the United States. But I don't think you're suggesting that Israel has adversely affected the infrastructure of utilities in the United States, are you?
Well, I'll give you as a breaking news story by NBC News saying national security as of yesterday, or June 5th, sorry, the Pentagon raised the threat level of Israeli
I know, to critical. I'm aware of that. So it's not breaking news to me. It's not breaking news to me. But that doesn't answer the question I've asked you, because you throw Israel in the context of a discussion of attacks on our water system.
But Gary, there's been no attack. It was prodding. And that's exactly what Israel did using Pegasus and other tools.
We own Pegasus, by the way.
When
we purchased Pegasus.
Correct. We purchased it as well. But what Israel used on us was they actually got into 7 government officials' phones and was considered.
Yes, they did. Now let me ask you a question. Let's go back to the documentary magazine Mad, and the documentary reporting about Spy versus Spy. Do you believe that the United States is likewise listening in on our terrific ally, Israel?
Oh, the United States is engaged in hacking everywhere. So I don't think we should give
So what is the point of your argument?
Well, why are you criticizing Iran hacking us? I mean, if it's all good,
Because Iran is the country that the intelligence community says is putting our water system into a vulnerable state. The intelligence community, you asked me a question, I'd like to answer it. The intelligence community did not say that it is suspected that Israel is putting our water system into potential threat. It said Iran. That's the answer to your question. And I think it was very smart of you. I think that was an excellent way of diverting attention from the discussion at hand to the point that you want us to discuss, which has nothing to do with our discussion at hand. It was well done, and I will give you, as I remove you from the stage, a round of applause for that, but don't do it again. Andrew, followed by El Normal.
Hi, Gary. Many of the points that Brian raised are absolutely valid in terms of the amount of adversaries that are out there. And this isn't new, of course. This has been a vulnerability since everybody started going online. That's where it started. And
Right, but we're talking specifically about 7 states' water systems being put at risk today. That's what we're talking about today.
I get that. I understand. But does your president understand that? Does he understand that it's Iran? Or does he think it's Minnesota?
I don't know. I haven't heard the president speak on this, so I can't answer that question. I will look that up. That's a good.
Yeah, well, that's what he indicated a few days ago. I don't know whether the rest of the administration has climbed aboard that particular bandwagon, but that's certainly a missed opportunity for what you were just speaking about in terms of trying to drive home the message of Iran being a threat to the United States for a generation. When your own president mockingly just says he's Minnesota and points his finger at Brad Walls. So that's an issue of leadership. Again.
Okay, you're correct. You are correct. You are correct. During a cabinet meeting, this is ABC News I'm reading. At Camp David, the president explicitly contradicted preliminary findings from the FBI and federal intelligence agencies regarding the cyber attacks on more than 30 municipal water facilities in Minnesota. This is the president of the United States just a few days ago. He directly dismissed the foreign involvement, saying, quote, "We heard in Minnesota there was a cyber attack and they blame it on Iran. I don't think so. I blame Minnesota because they are grossly incompetent." And he specifically leveled accusations against Tim Walz, the governor of Minnesota, labeling him corrupt, holding his administration responsible for failing to secure the infrastructure. And he downplayed the United States sponsored foreign actors targeting the systems, suggesting that Iran has far larger issues to worry about than Minnesota's municipal utilities. So I can't tell you what the president knows, but I can tell you that you are correct that that is what the president said.
And I'll just, one other thing is, in terms of the cutbacks, obviously an issue. I believe the DOJ cut back one of the main intelligence cyber attack agencies, decimated that particular agency. So, your readiness is at an all-time low. And now that you're a war nation, maybe looking into that. Now, if you got 70% of these water systems that have failed their audits, then what are the consequences to that? If this is a regulation, what are the consequences?
Usually no consequences because more than stuff is voluntary. It's not a mandate by the federal
I'm
government.
not so sure it is voluntary from what I just read.
It is? Okay. Then I might be wrong.
I know it's because I said it earlier, but I corrected myself. I don't believe it.
Oh, okay. And that's why I made that comment. But I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrew. Go to hell normal, followed by America. Now, normal. Are you waiting in line at the food co-op, or are you with them?
The food co-op that was overtaken by Palestinian terrorists. Well, yeah, I'm looking at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. Did you come across them, or CISA? They're the ones reporting that Iran hacked water systems in 7 states, and that in Minnesota alone 30 were affected. So is our water supply at risk? Well, our systems are at risk. And despite that unhinged attempt to attack Israel and indirectly an anti-Semitic diatribe like Israel is the enemy here, which was bizarre. And I am very impressed with the way you handled it. You have more patience than I do. Maybe I'll work on my patience. I do think we're dealing with a savage enemy, or two. So let me start by saying we somehow we waited out the Soviet Union and it collapsed. Unsustainable communist weight, and we're dealing with an enemy that is not quite as formidable as the Soviet Union. It's not an enemy that can end the world the way we in the Soviet Union could have. That's a pretty scary prospect. And the Soviet Union was big and smart and capable. And they had good spies, just to be redundant. But we're dealing with jihadists, and we're dealing with communists. And the communists are from the People's Republic of China, and the jihadists are, right now, mainly from the Islamic Revolutionary Genocide Corps, the IRGC. And I think we just have to remember that we were not going to surrender to the Soviet Union. We're not going to surrender to the IRGC, the Islamic State. We need to break them. We don't have much of a choice. Now, the latest offer was, well, we'll open the strait, no nuclear deal, and we're going to make
Right, but again, I redirect you as I often do, and you're very excellent in helping in abiding by my request to focus on the issue of the infrastructure of our water system specifically.
Well, do you want to say yes, or do you want me to speak any more than just to say yes?
Well, I want you to articulate your thoughts about that, of course.
Well, my thoughts about that is we're facing jihadist communist alliance, direct green alliance. It is obviously it's China and North Korea, Russia, which is no longer communist, but is sort of the remnant of communism, and Iran. And they it's asymmetric because we're bigger and more powerful, and so they are nibbling away at us doing things like threatening our water supply, hacking our social security administration, if I remember correctly, and I think that weather balloon, it turns out, was from China. So they're, oh, by the way, Russia is conducted live fire war games off the coast of England in international waters, but close enough to sort of be heard. So they're testing us. Oh, China just did something today. Did you see this, Gary? I mean, this was all in the same vein, as far as I understand. They showed, they released footage of a stealth bomber and a bomber with nuclear capability. I don't know if you saw that. So our enemies are testing us. And we can either respond with vigor and assurance, or we can fold. There's nobody backing us up. We're backing up Europe. We're backing up, Singapore and Japan and Australia and South Korea. But there's nobody backing up the United States, so we don't have much choice. We need to respond aggressively and vigorously, and we need to break them. We need to make it more painful for them to do this than to not.
So you do not subscribe to the argument that was proposed earlier that none of this would be happening if we weren't involved in the war in Iraq.
Well, Iran's been attacking us for 47 years in tons of different ways, from blowing up our servicemen in Iraq and our Marine barracks in Beirut, and being allied with Venezuela and drug cartels to infiltrate us from the south. I mean, we've always been in their crosshairs. They've told us that. And one thing I think we've learned from the jihadists is if they tell you that they want to kill you, they want to kill you. We should believe them. They lie about a lot of things, Gary, but they don't lie about that. That they tell us outright. And they're very proud of it. They want to kill us.
And I'm surprised Norm did not mention Iran sent his agent to Russia, to China, and also to North Korea to learn the hacking. It's been doing it for many years. Probably Mr. Amir knows a lot about more than I know, but they did that for many, many years.
So I think that's a real valid point that Norm is making, and excuse me, Alan is underscoring, and that is that while this particular attack may lead back directly to Tehran, the axis of evil remains intact, and that axis of evil has the United States in its crosshairs and has for many years. And again, I don't think the American people have been sold on the fact that we are vulnerable. I think our government has tried in the past to keep us a passive, populace, happy, and blissfully unaware, and I think that's coming back to bite us in the rear end today. Because we don't have that frame of reference to which you just referred. The general public just doesn't understand that.
These aren't pleasant thoughts. It keeps people up at night. It's anxiety provoking. But we're facing a very specific enemy. It's the Red Green Alliance. And we need to address it. And I understand that Trump is petty and petulant and erratic and impulsive, but he's the guy, somehow, that history has selected to lead this battle with Sarli. But there he is. And very imperfectly and clumsily and ignorantly, he's leading us.
God help us. We'll see which way this ends up going ultimately, because I can't predict which direction we're going in. It's interesting, your opening comment juxtaposed against the previous caller's closing comment, because you referred to an agency that he did not refer to by name, but that's to whom he was referring, or to which he was referring, CISA, the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. And he is exactly correct that under directives from Elon Musk's Doge initiative, CISA faced extensive funding cuts and workforce reductions designed to scale back the agency's size. Now, whether there's a cause and effect here, I don't know. I mean, long before CISA was decimated, these various 70% of the water supply systems across the country were inadequate in terms of security. So, but it is true that this agency that's supposed to be enforcing these rules, maybe it needs to be reconstituted, like a lot of what Doge cut was forced to reconstitute as well. That is a good debate that should be held in the public forum, in my opinion. Thank you, Norm. We'll go to I apologize for the coffee. I go to Amir, followed by William.
Is okay. Hi, everybody. So,
sacrifices, if you like, for cyber capabilities. Iran, North Korea, Israel, and of course India. India is another capable, but they are really in no way as sophisticated as the top three. I've got a little bit of technical background into this, so but infrastructure targeting, such as this water supply controllers, if you like, as someone said previously, these are regarded as soft targets, so they don't actually have to be that sophisticated to hack into this. Plus the fact that if more than if a large number of people have the password, you could just advertise that you buy the password for $100K or whatever, and you probably get about half a dozen of them coming towards you. So it's not it's not going to be that difficult to sort of hack into places. I mean, they can obviously exploit the internet the system, the internet explorer system, if you like. The PLCs that you mentioned, for example, in water or wastewater facilities, these are quite relatively easy to hack into, change the password, and lock the operators out. So that's not really rocket science compared to breaking into some of the more secure infrastructures. So this story is obviously is multi-state tracked. It can obviously do serious damage, but what can possibly be done about it? See, Russia. Let's not forget, Russia is known for really high technical offensive hackers. I mean, they are just number one probably in the world. They've proved it over and over again. They've got the stealth operations, and they're very difficult to trace back. Now, what is to stop? This is the question. I mean, China is the same. China is also recognized as a massive cyber powerhouse. Extensive, states of the sponsored programs that they run, on a very large scale. So my question is, what is to attack? What is to stop one of these countries, a team of two of Russians or China actually sitting in Tehran and doing this stuff that could potentially be far, far beyond the water supply? It could potentially be a lot more, at the espionage level, could be much higher with much more serious damage. So what is to stop that? I mean, this is a really interesting thought that that the US needs to consider. I mean, the moral of the story to me is either we all have to sort of live by, as nations that comply with some basic civil rules, so we don't hack into each other's sort of infrastructure. But unfortunately, that doesn't fit with a regime that calls for your destruction. And this is the problem that is being faced. One way or the other, we'll have to find a way, or they will find a way to hurt you. I mean, this is the nature of the beast. So I don't really know. I mean, it's more of a question to me than having any sort of deep thought about this area. What do you do with it? If a nation wants to hurt you, and they can do it quite easily. I mean, in terms of water supply, they can just buy the password. If it's that easy, so many people have it. But well beyond that, the question could be enormous, and the consequences could be disastrous. Anyway, I'll land it there.
So what are your thoughts about what I said a couple times, and that is that the American people, by and large, and I don't think this applies to this particular audience of inquisitive folks who come here on a daily basis, but by and large, the populace is unaware of the threat that Iran and as Norm points out, in conjunction with several other nations, pose to the United States. They're just oblivious to it.
See, they should put Marco Rubio in charge. He'll tell you exactly. 10 years
Russian side of things, things have been lacking for decades, if you like. But it's never late to start. You know, I mean, you've got this particular example in front of you. I mean, that's a good sort of gateway, if you like. But there's a whole host of other things which should have been Norman referred to, for example. It is really, I mean, fundamentally, you cannot live in this day and age. I mean, this is a global village. You cannot really live with any nation that is prepared to destroy you through relatively easy means, like cybersecurity. I mean, there's only so many times that you can change, you know, AES-256 passwords, which is very difficult to break into. But then don't forget also the other very important aspect here is quantum computing, which in China now is producing these at relatively low cost. And quantum computing is not just order of magnitude, is hundreds of order of magnitudes higher than the classical computers. So they will be able to break your AES-256 codes much easier and much faster than your classic techniques. So you really have to think about this. Okay, we all are capable of this. So China is not going to do it to US because US can easily do it to China. But Iran can purchase this, and they can do it to the US because their aim is America, America, to America. So you gotta deal with that, and that's you know, there's no other way basically in this day and age.
Thank you for that, Amir. We'll go to William, followed by Dave.
Hey, Gary. Hey, everybody. So, I'll just follow up on what Amir was saying and other people in the room. And that is that the obvious actor, I believe, but the obvious actor who's been conducting ongoing cyber attacks, cyber crimes, you know, different types of filching and basically organized crime activities against the United States is Russia. Russia is the obvious first suspect, despite the fact that we are in an active war right now with Iran. Iran has Russia as its ally, and Russia has been providing targeting information against the United States to the Iranians. Russia has been transporting things across the Caspian Sea to help out the Iranians, and this type of thing is within the Russian core competency. Russia excels at this. I'm not saying that Iran isn't good. Certainly their propaganda videos have been very high quality production value with their little Lego videos, which is Iranian propaganda. But the core competency of Russia is cybercrime. And Russia is essentially a kleptocracy and a mafia state that has been making money off of this sort of thing for over 10 years. I don't know the exact date, but this has more of a smell of Russian active measures. And Russia has not just been attacking the United States, but they've been attacking Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia, all of the countries that Moldova, that are likely to be next in line to be attacked and are at risk when Putin starts lashing out, because Russia is basically losing ground in their war against Ukraine. So Russia is a really dangerous actor, and I don't think just because we're in an active war with Iran, Russia has been helping them. Russia has been just
they're the second place threat right below China. If you look at our national defense authorizations, they rank China the first near-peer competitor, and Russia the second near-peer competitor.
Well, China is a near-peer competitor, but they're qualitative.
My point was that the NDAA prescribed them as the first near-peer competitor. Russia is the second near-peer competitor. Iran Iran is the third near-peer competitor, and North Korea is the fourth near-peer competitor. My point was that they arranged them in the
I agree with you. I agree with you. But qualitatively, China is still engaged with the United States. China still does business with us. China is not walled off from us by sanctions in the same way as Russia, Iran, and North Korea. They're in a different. They're almost in a different bucket because we are still doing tremendous amount of business with China, and it's not in their interest to really, go all out with direct cyber attacks against the United States in this manner when it doesn't serve their financial interests. I can't prove that, but that's just my critical thinking analysis leads me to believe that this is more likely to be Russia helping their ally Iran rather than just Iran doing this on their own, because it has the fingerprints and the smell of Russian active measures. Does that make sense?
So what you're suggesting is that while Iran has its proxies in the Middle East, Russia has Iran as its proxy, because Russia cannot directly attack the United States civilian infrastructure for fear of some kind of retaliation.
I'm saying the opposite. Russia has been actively attacking the United States. I put up a whole bunch of things in the
intelligence community ascribed this to Iran.
That's a very good question. I do have a theory, and that is that the current administration is loath to say anything critical of Vladimir Putin for whatever reason that we haven't been able to completely identify.
But you've been in favor of this assessment from the intelligence community was rejected by the administration. So I don't know that that's the case. The administration says, no, this is on walls. This isn't on Iran. So I'm not so sure that it's a case of the intel community. I don't think the intel community has a reputation and a history of presenting to the president the facts and the variables as it best understands it, and then leaves it up to the administration to decide how to parse that and how to respond to it. We now have an administration, and we documented some of that yesterday, that doesn't pay attention to what the intel community tells it. So I have got to say, from my perspective, just based on what we know today, that it appears that this is Iran, not Russia. Now, Iran may be doing it as a proxy of Russia or in conjunction with Russia. I'm not saying there's not support there. There's certainly support where Russia is telling Iran where our military assets are so that they can hit it, but Russia's not doing it directly. This could be the same kind of thing. But I don't think that the intel is off base. I think that the president, his public response to the intel is clearly off base.
Take a look at the Politico article about the Republicans wanting to restore, and it's in the nest or whatever it's called. It's not in the nest, but it's in the chat. They want to restore that which Trump has cut in past administrations and has failed to restore in the current administration. And this goes back to an antipathy against the intelligence community by this president in his first and second terms, going back to when he was standing on stage with Vladimir Putin saying, I believe him, not our intelligence community. And there was a lot of purging of our intelligence community in favor of Russia, reflecting a Trump bias. Now, you can believe that or not believe it, but there's been extensive research and reporting on this. And I think as much as I dislike the Iranian Mullah regime, and I think they're a theocratic fascist entity and terrible, I also want to keep my eyes open to a real constant enemy that has the real competency and past proven ability and activities that correspond with this type of attack.
Is there anything to support the suggestion that you were making? Anything on the record to support the suggestion that you're making that our intelligence community, and you're right, it's not the same intelligence community it was when he took office. There were people purged, as there were people purged from the military. Is purposely providing disinformation to the president in order to meet his preconceived agenda. Is there any?
No, you're not gonna find that though. They are so.
Well, then you have to be careful about making that accusation.
I think you have to be careful again about jumping to the conclusion that it's Iran and stop really looking at Russia, because there is motive and opportunity to spin this towards Iran and away from Russia.
But you just said that the intelligence, there's no indication that the intelligence community is doing that. There's no evidence that it is doing this. So this is your speculation.
If you look at the articles,
You have to wait, Dollface. This is strictly your speculation that this is what's happening, or somebody else's speculation that you read, and that you referred me to an article. I want to know facts. Where do we have facts to support a contention that our intelligence community is coloring its reports to the president in order to meet his preconceptions, as you are suggesting?
I am suggesting that the articles that I found while I was waiting to come up, that I posted to the chat, support. I don't have complete research done on this particular fine point, but the pattern. The Republicans themselves are advocating to rehire and restore funding for the nation's cyber.
Right, that's what I just referred to a moment ago, okay?
And I think that although I don't have
so those articles suggest, and I don't know who wrote what article, and whether they're journalists or opinion makers or anything like that. You're just saying articles. I'm not looking at them because I'm moderating them. I don't know.
It's scary. It's coming from Politico. Mostly Politico.
Yeah, what are they saying? What are they saying?
Versus Politico.
Yeah, what does the political article say?
it's nice.
All right, I can't hear. I can't hear either. I can't hear. Hold on a second. I can't hear either of you. William, stand down for a second. Marshall, yeah, because his mic was open. I couldn't hear you. So what were you saying? What does the political article say? Marshall? Okay, I've lost you. We're gonna let this go, but the link to the chat is above. You can all go to that link and go to the article or articles that William has posted and decide for yourself. Yes, from Politico. You can go to those articles for yourself and determine whether those articles suggest that the intelligence community has begun coloring its reporting to not tell the president what they have actually found, determined, analyzed, but have changed their reporting, their findings.
That's not what I think. That's not what I suggested.
And that's what I asked you when you pointed to those articles.
I'm saying that in the short time that I did the research, that's what I found so far. And the logical what I'm trying to say.
So I want you to answer the question, not tell me what you're trying to say. I'm asking you for the fifth time, is there anything, any credible reporting that suggests that the intelligence community is coloring its reports in order to satisfy the president?
Not directly, but I will look.
No is the answer. Okay, thank you, Lynn. That's all I needed is the answer. No is the answer. You gotta be careful about making such an accusation absent any reporting that suggests that that's what's going on. That is a major accusation. In the critical thinking form, that's not critically thinking. That's somebody's supposition. And you can suppose anything you want, but when I challenge you and I ask you, is this your supposition? Or is there something on the record to suggest this? Just admit it's your supposition. And we wouldn't have to go through this with the back and forth that nobody wants to hear. Dave, followed by Dolphins.
I think the key word for tonight today is optimism. As you correctly point out, optimism. No matter how you try to talk about how dangerous is this regime, the previous speaker, they just can't get it. It's like a robot that we programmed not to harm human, right? So in this case, Iran is the human. So if no matter how you try to argue, as long as touch on Iran, they will divert the discussion to Israel, to Russia, as long as not about Iran, right? They consider red-green alliance, they are all equal. And they don't understand Iran is not the same.
I don't think that's a fair characterization of the previous caller. I don't think he tried to divert any attention to Israel, and I don't think that it's a fair characterization to suggest that he doesn't recognize the threat of Iran. I just believe that his argumentation lacked substance. He may be correct, but he didn't bring anything to the table to support his contention. But I don't think it's fair to go so far as to suggest that he does not understand the threat of Iran.
He understands, but he took everything equal. Iran, you can, if Russia were to do the same thing to the water supply, they know exactly how US will retaliate and destroy, and then will hold back. But Iran is different. You can destroy everything as long as they get to kill a couple of America, you still agree. That is the differences the previous caller cannot differentiate. That's my point.
I think the previous caller, and I'm going to go to Marshall after this, I believe the previous caller likes to be contentious. And he likes to be contradictory, and he likes to throw articles in the chat ad nauseum, supporting whatever position that he supports, which he has the right to do. And I don't think that it was particularly critically thought out, his argumentation today. Sometimes, many times it is critically thought out, but not today. And, you know, all I did was challenge him on it, and he did not rise to the challenge. And it was kind of an obstinate response rather than an actual response to the question that I had posed. But I don't think it's at all indicative of a negativity about the global threat that Iran presents, just based on how well I know that previous caller and his previous positions. Thank you, Dave. Marshall?
Well, we're out of time. Let's go to the other caller.
Okay, Dollface. There you go. Go ahead.
That's why I did it, because I definitely do feel sometimes we have these conversations about American history and this global America. Literally forget American history as tired of y'all's mess and we want to try to, take control of you so that these type of things happen anymore. Why would they tell us that? They're not
I'm
gonna
going to take that as an affirmative. You think the water systems are vulnerable to hacking?
Yes, absolutely.
Please speak a little bit more about that. Thank you.
Sorry,
You
I just
think they're
want to
vulnerable?
start the conversation. But yes, when it comes to our water supply, I definitely think it is vulnerable in different states. I definitely feel like number one, the whole data center thing, I definitely feel like it's kind of being pushed out in front so that everybody can be upset about that. But in reality, there are so many other things that are impacting our water systems, especially with the lax laws that we've had about certain companies being able to, now pollute in a way that they couldn't pollute before. Get rid of microplastics and plastics in a way that they couldn't do before. Those are pollutants to our water system. Not only that, but it's going to, as more and more of them seep into the water, that's going to get into food. And I definitely feel like that's why, again, while we do have the worms and everything else coming in, there's also going to be more things coming up with where can you even grow safe food because of the amount of pollutants that are being put into the ground.
Oh yeah. You know, uh, one of the uh, one of the main pollutants that are put into the ground, embalming fluid. Why we have to preserve bodies that are gonna go ashes to ashes and dust to dust with embalming fluid, which then leaches into the groundwater and provides for you and me carcinogens to drink. That's a person's legacy. I don't get it. Folks, we're here Monday through Friday at 5 o'clock New York time. So till 5 o'clock New York time, tomorrow, for the next edition of the Critical Thinking Forum, everybody be safe, be well, and peace out.
Oh, shit. Oh, shit. Derek Brose. Derek. Oh.
The 2027 race for Chicago's mayor promises to have plenty of twists, turns, and political finger-pointing, and it could turn out to be a referendum on resumes. Mayor Brandon Johnson continuing to talk about his in the run-up to his expected re-election announcement. Other candidates are ready to remind voters about Alexi Janulius' past. Alexi Janulius launching his campaign for competent mayoral candidates, and hundreds of banks failed. The Janulius campaign issuing a statement saying voters are tired of career politicians recycling the same old lies from more than 15 years ago to get attention. Alexi has assembled a coalition of support because he's focused on making the city safer and more affordable, the things voters act.
You AI, man.